Hello guys, it's been Emmanuel here. Welcome to my channel. In this video, we'll learn how to create server-side application in PHP the right way. If you're a beginner interested in learning how to make PHP applications or an experienced PHP guy looking at improving your skills, then you're in the right place. We'll start with creating a folder for the project, and you can actually call this folder whatever you want. And for me to do that, I'll open up the terminal and then I'm going to change my directory by typing cd usr/local var ww. So I'm changing my directory to the www directory, which is where the PHP application is going to live. And I'm going to create a folder here, mkdir, to make a directory or make a folder. And you can call this folder whatever you want to call it. I will call it PHP Toots because I'm creating this folder for the sake of this video. All right, so it already exists. I'm going to change my directory into that PHP Toots folder. And the next thing I will do here is to initialize the project with Composer. This is one thing that a lot of developers who start writing PHP fail to do. And since we are trying to do things the right way, we will do it this way. Composer init. I'm initializing this project with Composer. And here you have to provide some informations. I'm going to start with providing mine. These are just dummy data. Zervtech app. The description. A PHP application with being Emmanuel the right way. Alright, so that's going to be the description of the application. But on your own end, you can actually make this what this application is about. This should be exactly the description of your application. And then an email address, the name of the author and the email address of this author in exactly this format. So if I'm going to do this, then I will type my name and my email address here in that format and hit enter on my keyboard. And this is going to ask for the minimum stability version. This is dev. So there are different options you can have here. You can have dev, you can have beta, you can have alpha, and you can have stable. So we're going with the dev version, and you're going to enter the package name. So this is the package type instead. So this is actually a project here, not a library. We don't have a license, so I'm going to hit enter. Would you like to define your dependencies? No, I don't have we're not going to be having any dependencies for now. No dev dependencies for now. And this is telling me that it's going to be create an autoload mapping based on the RS standard, PHP standard. And this is going to map this namespace to this folder, this path for me. And yeah, I think that's what I want you to do. So I'll hit enter. Now it's asking me to confirm what I have here. I think this is exactly what I want: the name, the description, the type, and so on. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter because I have confirmed it. Now we have created some files here. Automatically Composer created these files for us, and we can go open up this folder in code. We can open up the actual working directory because I'm going to refer to the PHP tut as our working directory or the root directory of this application. So I'm going to open it in code, in VS Code, by typing code and then dot, because I want to open the current directory in VS Code. Now in VS Code here, let's zoom in a little bit. All right, so in VS Code here, if you look at the side here, this is a folder Composer created for us. This is another folder Composer created for us, and then it created a file called composer.json which contains everything that we supplied it. And right, so let's see what are we going to do next. And the next thing to do is to we've created the project directory, which is PHP tut. We've initialized the project, and now what we will do next is create the entry point of our application. And as you all know, the entry point is going to be the index.php file. So this is going to be the entry point of our application. And next I will create the configurations of this application. And this is going to be in a new file called config.php. And because we are trying to learn PHP the right way, how to write PHP the right way, or how to create a PHP app server-side application the right way, then we are doing things this way. So here in my configuration file, I will have the configurations that I need. So first, remember we used Composer to create an auto load. Composer actually created an auto load file for us. It generated it for us. So we can use this auto load file to actually automatically load all the files that we need to require. So we don't have to use the require keyword every time we need a file. All right, so I'll start writing because I want to create my configuration. So in the configuration file, what we will do first is include require the autoload.php file. So this autoload.php file is supposed to take care of the job of including all the files we need when we are trying to include files. And since it's going to be something that we need in all the files we will be working with, we have to include it here in the configuration file, because the configuration file is something that should be accessible in all the files we will be working on. Now the next thing I will do here is create a constant here, and this constant is actually a name I like using. Create there is environment production. All right, so it's like a question: is this environment production? We're going to tell it false. This production is not a production environment. It's actually our development environment, so it's not a production environment. This is supposed to be defined. I don't know why I'm messing up. I'm really bad at spelling. All right, so we just defined the constant. Now we're going to turn on, oh my goodness, turn on error reporting. All right, that's what we will do here. So error reporting is what we want to turn on, and we actually want PHP to give us all error messages, and the strict, oh my god, why do I suck at spelling? All right, so we're turning on error reporting, and here we might also want to say init set, not get, sorry. So init set error or display errors. We want to display errors, so is environment production. So remember, these constants we created here is to help our PHP application know that this environment is not a production environment, or to let it know that it's a production environment depending on the environment we're currently working on. So since this is not a production environment, we're having it here. So this is going to help it know that yes, since it's not the production environment, then we want you to turn on error reporting for us. So if it was a production environment, if we deploy this application, then we have to change this to true, because it's going to be a production environment that we are deploying this application to. Next is to set, so I'm going to set my time zone. So I'm going to set time zone, and I wanted to use my Nigerian time. Oh my goodness, I'm bad at spelling. So date, default, time zone set is what I want. I wanted to use my Nigerian time, Africa/Lagos. All right, so Africa/Lagos. This is my time zone. If you actually do not know your time zone, you can hover on these, and this is going to provide a link here. This is a link here where you can see a list of all these time zones. If you click on it, it should open up a page where we'll actually see a list of all the time zones. All right, so you can click on it. I'll leave the link in the description below too, so you can always use it. Now, this is exactly all I need for my configuration file for now. If there's anything I need to add to the configuration file, then I'm going to add it later on as we go. All right, so, and let's see what we need. Let's open up our browser. I'll open up my browser. I think I have a browser window open. Oh my goodness. I want a browser window. Alright, so I have a browser window open here now. Go full screen mode, and here I'm going to type localhost/php toots, which is actually our PHP application here. So whatever the name of the folder you created is what you're going to enter here. So the name of the folder I created is PHP toot, so I'm referring to PHP toot here. All right, so that's the entry point of our application. So if we actually say use the shorthand tag to echo out hello world, you will see on the screen that we're going to have a hello world printed out on the screen. Okay, if we do index.php, this is actually accessing the index file because that's what we are requesting for. So we send a request to the server for the index.php file, and the server returned back the index.php file. Now, what we want to do is prevent something like this from happening. Instead, we want something like home for the home page, and you can see that it doesn't work because application cannot find that particular page to display to us, so it doesn't work. So we want a situation whereby if we enter home, or if we enter contact, and it's going to take us to the contact page, or if we enter about, it will take us to the about page without having that extension .php in the file here. So to actually fix this problem we have in here, what we're going to do is you would want to download a htaccess file that I created, and I have a link to it in the description below. You'll have to download this file and then include it here in your application. So just paste that file in the application. So I have it pasted here in the application, and this is actually going to fix that problem for us where we don't get this error at all. So if we enter home, we don't get the error that home isn't found. And if we get maybe users, we don't get any error. If we go to about, we don't get any error, but it's still serving us that hello world that comes from the index.php file. So the index.php file, like I said, is actually the entry point of the application. Now it is now up to us to decide where to take the user to when they enter a particular route. And that's what we need to decide now, because we have fixed that problem of having the PHP extension. So you don't need to always have the PHP extension before it works. And that's what the .htaccess file does for us. And if you're wondering how I created the php.htaccess file, you shouldn't worry about that, because that will be treated in a different video that I have. That's actually treated in a different video that I have in the description below. So you need to watch the video I have a link to in the description below to learn how to work with .htaccess, so you can manipulate your server to do what we just did now. Now we don't always want to serve hello world text to the user whenever they visit any route. We want to actually send the user to the home page if the user visits the home route, or the contacts page if the user visits the contacts route. And to do this, we will need to create a router. All right, so let's create our router. In the source folder, what I'm going to do here is I'll try to be a lot more organized than I usually am. I'm just kidding. All right, so let's create I think I want to create a folder here called app. App is going to contain all the code, all the programs for this application. And then I'll create the router in it. And here I have the router. It's going to be a PHP class. So this is actually object-oriented programming. And like I said, even if you are a beginner or someone who has already been writing in PHP, this is still going to be for you, because everything is going to be explained as we go. So here we're going to write these, and you can see here that I'm actually spelling the name different from how I spelled this one. The initial here is actually not capitalized, and I have the initial for router capitalized, and this is because this is how we name files that actually contain classes. And in object-oriented programming, we actually create classes, and classes are actually blueprints of an object. So the class actually describes what an object will look like, and objects actually trying to mimic real world objects. So if you want to get a clear understanding of what these classes are or what an object is, then I'm going to leave a link in the description that should help you with that. So here we have a class called router, and we need to put this class in the namespace. I'm going to call it app, the namespace app, but I think I want to believe that this is actually not going to work fine, because in my composer.json file, where I have actually told my application where to find my my files, or that's namespace. There's actually no namespace called app. It's rather htaccess/app. So I wanted to have a namespace called app instead of htaccess/app, and I want this to be mapped to this particular project folder we have in here, this app folder I mean. So it's going to be source/app, which is going to point to this folder we have in here. So whenever I'm referring to this namespace app, it should know that, hey buddy, if you want to look for that file this guy is talking about, then go into this source/app file to get the file that Emmanuel is talking about. All right, so here in this router here, this is where we get to decide what page a user should visit, should actually see on the application, and depending on what they actually type in here. So if I type in home, oh god, if I type in home, then we want the user to visit the home page. The router takes the responsibility of deciding that for the user. So let's go ahead and create the first method here. So the first method we're going to make here is a method that should handle all GET requests. So all GET requests are going to be handled here, and this GET method is going to take a string, which is going to be the route. Remember, like I told you, the route is going to be something like /contact, or like I told you, let's go back here. So the route is actually going to be something like this. So /home or /contact or /about or /profile, whatever it's supposed to be. So that's exactly what we want it to look like. And that's why we need to pass in the route here, because this is going to help our application know what the user wants. All right, so we're going to pass in the route to the method, and we're going to also pass in a callable, and let's call this action. All right, so this is going to be the callable here is going to be what's going to decide what the user says. So it's actually going to decide what our user will see based on the route they are trying to visit. And then in here, all right, so let's see. I want to return self. So self actually means returning back the object that we've created. So we're going to create a router object that now gives us the opportunity to create a route, a GET route or a POST route. So we're starting with the GET route first, and this GET route method should return back a router object back, because we would like to use it again to create other routes. So it's not going to make sense now, but once I start creating it, it will. So this is expecting to return the current object. So we're returning back this, which is going to refer to the current object. And I think I want a property at the top here, and that's going to be a private property. So private routes, not routers. So this is going to be, we expect this to be an array. So let's make sure we are actually giving it the exact types that we expect it to be. So this is routes here is going to be a list. This is going to contain or like store a list of all the routes that we have in the application. So we might have a couple of routes like home, contact, about, profile, user login, or user sign up page, or routes. I mean, so this is going to contain all the routes. Yeah. And down here we are going to pass in what the routes we're giving to the request method. The request, oh my goodness, what am I saying? This method is actually supposed to handle the get request, right? So the route we actually pass into it is what we now need to pass in. We now need to store inside the array. So we're creating an array of all the routes. So we need to do something like this. We need to say routes, and this is going to be, we're going to pass in the routes, and then so we're passing in the route as a key, because the key, if you already know how arrays work, it's going to be clear to you that when you're creating an array, you're definitely going to have keys. It's actually, arrays are actually key and value, and so if we're providing the key here to be the route the person is visiting, and then the action, the callable here, what we're expecting the user to see on the screen is what we now have to bind to that particular route. So this is going to be a list of routes, and that route should be equal to whatever the user should see on the page. Like, that's our action. All right, so if we have these, then this is actually cool. We can go back to the index.php file and then get rid of this code we're having there. And here we want to start off with requiring we're going to start off with requiring the configuration file, which is in the same directory, so slash and config.php. So this is going to give us our configuration here, and as you know, the configuration requires the autoloader. It also turns on error reporting, and then it sets my time zone to Africa, Lagos, though I'm not in Lagos. But I don't have the option to switch to my current location, so that's all PHP knows. Lagos, yeah, Lagos. They only know Lagos. Right, so here we want to create a new object, a new router object here. So I'm going to do that in parentheses like this, and let's try to make the code look nice. So let's say we pass get and end the statement here. And as you already know, this is, oh damn it, and this is not actually using the router, and that's because of a problem we have in Composer here. So we actually did all of these and never did that Composer install here. So I'm going to go back to my terminal and fix this by doing Composer install, because this is actually meant to install all the packages and everything we need for this application to actually work fine. The autoloaders, this is supposed to pick all the packages that we have put in those namespaces, and then fix them and actually feed them to us as we use them. So let's rewrite this. So router, if you look here now, you can see that I have this use app router. So that's now helping our application know what router is and where to find router. And here, this is expecting two parameters, and the first one is supposed to be the route, like a slash. So this is actually going to we're actually referring to the slash as the home page, and we are going to create an anonymous function here, which is, maybe let's echo hello paying Emmanuel again. All right. I don't know, am I doing something wrong? Let's see. It's like I'm doing something wrong. This is syntax error, unexpected this. All right, so this is supposed to end this. We're supposed to end this statement here. Now everything is fine. But if we go to the browser, we've just created the first route, which is slash. But if we go to the browser here and we try to visit the page, we get nothing on the page. And that's because we're actually not telling it what to do. So we're actually not calling this function we're having here. So this function is supposed to be called when the user visits this route so that we can get this message on the screen. But we're actually not calling this function. So how do we get it to run that function for us? So down here, I'm going to create another function here, or a method rather, and I want to call it listen. All right, so this function is going to help our application listen to the routes the user is going to. So it's going to listen to the routes the user is visiting. And so how do we actually get all of this data we need here for the route here? Because we need a route here, and the route should be equal to whatever route the user enters. So we need to actually get the route the user is entering. So this is actually two different things. So the route we are having here is completely different from this. So this is actually the route the user is trying to visit, and this is actually the route that we're bringing available to the user. So we're actually making this route available to the user. So we're actually saying, hey buddy, you can actually do slash or slash contact, like slash home, like this, to visit the home page of our website. And yeah, if you do this, that will take you to the home page of our website. But how do we now know what route the user is trying to visit? And that is where you get to define something like this here. So we're actually going to listen to the routes the user is visiting, and then try to check if that route is in the list of routes that we have provided. If it's not in the list of routes that we have provided, then we're going to tell the user, fall for the page you're trying to visit is not found, or we're going to display whatever the user is supposed to see on the page. So let's start off with defining that route. And okay, let's see. I'll comment this out and then go back to the home page. I will end PHP here. I want to end PHP, and I want to create a pre-tag that will format this code for me. Server, no, not this way. I want to actually print out what we have in that super global variable server onto the screen. And if I refresh my browser, this is actually containing all the server information that we have here. And what we need here is the request URI. So with the request URI, we can tell what page the user is trying to visit. And yeah, that's it. Because if you do profile, yeah, the request URI is going to have profile here, and this is actually the route that the user is trying to visit. And maybe if you do colon user equal to this number, and then we are going to know that this is the route the user is trying to visit, and this is the query the user is trying to make. So the user is trying to get whoever is visiting the page is trying to get a user with this ID, stuff like that. All right, so this is actually our route. So how do we now get this route? I'll comment this out so we don't get anything on the screen whenever I refresh the page again. All right, so how do we actually get that route? So here where we're listening, we can get the route the user is visiting by exploding that function, that's array. We explode, sorry, did I say array? We're actually going to explode the string, because if we comment this out and then go back to this, so square brackets request URI, and we refresh the page. Oh no, into poor spelling. URI. Just poor spelling. All right, so this is the request URI, and now we want to break this string. We're trying to break this string, and we'll start off with removing this part from the string here. So we want to remove this part from the string, and to actually remove that part from the string, we will need to do something like we're going to say /php tut, and this should remove that part from the server, super global variable server request underscore URI. I keep typing URL instead of I. See? All right, so and you can actually echo this to the screen for us to see. Echo route, and we remove these lines of codes here. This were actually meant to test. If we refresh the page, we get nothing. But now if we, since this method we're having here returns back the router, we can actually create a chain here. So we want to listen, and if we're listening to the route, then it's actually going to show us what the route is. And as you can see, it says we're having a problem here because we're trying to convert an array to a string, which is not possible. So this is where our problem is. All right, so to fix the error, I'm going to create a pre-tag here. Remember, it's an array, so I want to actually format this properly on the screen for us to see. And this print echo print r. I want to pass the route and then pass in true and then end my statement. So this will print out what we just created now. And if we go back to the page, all right, so we are now having a list. You already know how the explode function works, so I'm assuming. So the explode function is going to split a string by a string. So it's going to use this string to split this string, so we can get what we're getting here as a result here. So after splitting this, we now get this at this particular location. So we can pass that here like this. So if we pass 1 here, passing 1 here now means we are going to get something like this. So that's our route. But this is actually not what we want. We just want this part of the code, and that's exactly what we want, just this part of this route. And to get that part of the route, we need to update the route again. So I'm going to route should be equal to explode again, and we want to explode where we have that question mark, so that we can get rid of these parts of, well, so that we can get these parts, leaving just this part of it. This part of it. All right, so to do that, we will say we want to explode route again. And leaving this line here, we will also see the results we got getting here. Now you can see that we now get another array, and this is in this location and this is in the next location. So what we want is the 0th location here. And so I'm going to make sure I have my square brackets 0. And now we have the routes the user is trying to visit. Thumb up, bro. It's actually cool that we are now having the routes the user is trying to visit. All right, so we don't need this line of code that we're having here, and we need to actually call the function. So how do we call the function? So we can call the function or the action by doing this. So the action the person is actually going to trigger is going to be found in here. We're going to get it from here. We're going to get it from the list of routes that we've created sooner. And we're going to pass in the routes the person visits, and this will return back the action that we are supposed to. Remember, the action is actually what the user will see on the page. And then we can call action with brackets here, because this is a function, so it's fine if we do this. It's a callable, so it's fine if we do this, since we know it's a function. So we can actually do this and expect everything to work fine, but it might not always work fine. Let's try and see if it will work fine. So if I hit enter, we get undefined array key profile. But if I do this, or we get the same thing, but if I do home, because we have home defined already, it's going to take us to this page where we'll see what we have on the home page, which is actually what we did here. So on the home routes, this is what we are saying we want to display, and we can create another route by doing get a new route, maybe about, and we create an anonymous function here. This function shouldn't have a name, so function, and then we echo out, maybe this time around let's have a tag saying the outputs about page h1. I think let's do the same thing here, h1 and h1. All right, so this will display the page we are visiting for us. So if I go to about, we get about page. If I go to home, we get hello, being Emmanuel. Maybe I need to say from the home page, right? So hello, being Emmanuel from the home page. So if we refresh this, we get hello, being Emmanuel from the home page. Well, this is actually nice. But how do we fix those problems that we are having? If you want to know how to fix the problems we're having when we visit other routes that do not exist, then maybe other routes that do not exist, then you might want to keep watching my video. If you like what I just did, you can give it a thumb up, and don't forget to subscribe to the video. Thank you for watching this video. We are going to learn how to create the other routes, or how to fix the problems we're having, how to handle the post routes, and thank you for watching this video.